Alright. In the midst of agony and hardships, who are the figures that shine light into the bright world? You may think about political leaders, daring scientists, or brave warriors in history as influential, and that is absolutely true. However, there are many creative and courageous modern dance revolutionaries who have prominently impacted our world. Hello, my name is Lena Choi, and today I will be exploring the early modern dance period and sharing with you how the dancers of this time used their abilities to contribute to the expansion of dance culture. This brings us to the question at hand today. How did early modern dance choreographers use their works to expand the limits of dance? In the first part of this presentation, I will go over what early modern dance was and what defines this dance technique. Next, we will dive into two examples of the innovative dancers during this period, Martha Graham and Doris Humphrey. Finally, the presentation will summarize the social impacts of this era and conclude with a reminder of the essential focus of this presentation. Let's jump right in. So, what really is early modern dance? Early modern dance can be distinguished by its experimentative mindset, its dismantlement of codified ballet language, and its pursuit of the natural human essence. It is characterized through the rebellion against Western ideal of beauty. An article on this revolutionary period of dance states, modern dance was born at the beginning of the 20th century out of the need to disengage the medium from the formal rigor of ballet. This statement is an accurate way of describing how dance broke free from its restrictions and took on its new innovative form through modern dance. The classical Western ballet style depicted on the left includes men lifting female ballerinas, constant pointing of feet, and maintaining an upright, dignified position. Because of its timeless elegance, the classical ballet structure was the dominant dance during this period. The image on the right shows how dancers are crumpled on the floor with their limbs bent at strange angles. This displays the core of modern dance, which included floor work and embraced the natural form of the body. The escape from typical classical ballet principles is essential to understand what early modern dance truly was. In short, early modern dance is the cultivation of new and outstanding ideas, expressed through a mix of movement styles across culture and time. How did this all begin, you may ask? Early modern dance first developed in the 1930s, when America was going through the Great Depression and economic difficulties. This period of darkness encouraged people to search for freedom within themselves, and many found this liberation through dance. Adversity also sparked a depth in artistic values, and many dancers wanted their works to be acknowledged as profound interpretations of the world, rather than mere entertainment. Now that we have gone over the abstract concepts of early modern dance, let us shift our focus to the first representative of this period, Martha Graham. Martha Graham was a classically trained dancer who diverged from the typical dance style in pursuit of her passionate and psychological approach to dance. Martha's dance technique involved movements that were explosive and strong, highlighted in the natural movement of her human body rather than in artificial beauty. Graham's piece, Lamentation, is a greatly appreciated example of early modern dance because of its blatant objection to classical techniques such as weightlessness or flashy turns. Let's take a look at the dance. As you can see in this video, Martha embodies the internal struggles of the mind by using physical restraints to represent an intangible subject, which was groundbreaking since it reconstructed the classical style. She also uses natural movements and accentuates the angular twisting of her body as a true representation of the carnal struggle. As seen in Lamentation, Martha's dance style was a combination of powerful pull and explosive movement, which worked together like the force of nature. Her simple and direct approach to her choreography created a defiant and strong theme in her pieces. In addition to that, Martha Graham did not flourish her movements or create flashy and complicated motions. Instead, Graham invented the contraction and release technique, which incorporated the tension and relaxation of the body. This technique was stark and percussive, with a sharp blade-like edge to her form. The contraction and release also made her arms and legs contour into unnatural, angular shapes. However wild and unconventional this approach may have been, the innovation of this technique was a huge expansion from the dainty and delicate customs of Western dance. Graham's relationship between her soul and body was one of the most distinguishing traits of her choreographies. To Martha, her body was the window to her heart, and from others' creative expressions such as poetry or art, she drew her ideas. This meant that oftentimes Martha's dances were imperfect in its beauty and flooded with harsh truth, which was another way in which she rebelled against the Western ideal of beauty. Dance is the hidden language of the soul, Graham says, and there is not a more accurate expression to describe the essence of Graham's inspiration. In fact, Martha's themes were so thoroughly interwoven with the psyche and the mind that her dances were referred to as psychodramas. Martha Graham was a fearless voice for all things true and grounded. Her view of dance and the world was rooted in her belief that the world did not need romanticization. A source on Graham's psychological approach states, during the late 1930s and the 1940s, Graham peered into the human heart with a relentlessness that resulted in a body of work unmatched in the field. Because the topic of psychology was so fresh during her time, Martha Graham's exploration of psychology and the mind was a revolutionary example of how she explored beyond the familiar grounds of dance. I feel that the essence of dance is the expression of man, the landscape of his soul. I hope that every dance I do reveals something of myself or some wonderful thing a human being can be, Martha explains in her biography, Blood Memory. The essence of dance is the expression of man, and there is no better way to summarize the fresh, groundbreaking contribution Graham has made for the dance culture. The next figure we will be discussing is Doris Humphrey. Doris Humphrey was a phenomenal choreographer and innovator, whose impact during the early modern dance period reinvented the culture of dance. Doris Humphrey was a creative mastermind whose works used the principle of gravity to create elusive techniques. Her key principle was built on the idea that movement and motion was the essence of dance, which greatly changed how meaning was infused into her dances. Because Doris believed that motion was at the center of dance, she explored a wide variety of dynamic and rhythm components. Humphrey's dance form also included the usage of gravitational pull. Instead of fighting against the natural forces, Humphrey embraced the natural form of her body to create a living image. The unmatched parallel between the body and movement was a simple principle in her works, but proved that Doris Humphrey was a true innovator who broke through the boundaries of traditional dance. Doris Humphrey is a phenomenal dancer who is most known for her invention of the fall and recovery technique, which is a form of dance movement that involves in the release and suspension of the body. This method was an ingenious idea, as it allowed Doris to explore balance, rhythm, and pulse in her choreographies. Her dance style focused on pelvic movement as the center of balance and used space and tension to create impact in her motions. Her dance form enabled her to use gravitational techniques and highlight the movement of suspension before the fall. The tension and sustained balance in her choreography was what distinguished her style from other modern dancers. Humphrey incorporated the lapse between the body and the movement to amplify dimension in her works. The fall and recovery technique was completely different from the classical approach of weightlessness and graceful dancing because instead of defying gravity, This technique utilized the weight and pull of it. Humphrey's fall and recovery form also included the usage of gravitational pull. This meant that instead of fighting against the natural forces of the body, Humphrey embraced the weight to create a living image. The connection to the ground made a shocking comparison with the idea of weightlessness seen in many traditional dance styles. By rebelling against these principles, Humphrey redefined self-expression seen in dance culture. We will now observe one of Humphrey's most popular dances, water study, which brings to life Humphrey's stylistic values, such as rhythm and dimension. Before I play the video, one thing to keep in mind is the intentional lack of audio in this piece. As you have noticed, the dancers are not following any music or sound to keep them in the tempo, but rather they are using the rhythm of their breathing to stay together. This was one of the most revolutionary aspects of Humphrey's dances, which highlighted the dancers' ability to move with only the connection of their breath. A few other things to notice about this are the weight distribution techniques of the dance movements, seen in the constant shifting from one part of the body to another. It is also important to note that to contrary from the elevated dance style, early modern dance embraces the relationship with gravity. The dancers roll and lapse onto the floor, using the weight of their body to emphasize gravity. The rippling effect woven into the movements, as well as the thrusting motion of the upper body, were all uncommon forms of dance technique, but were nonetheless beautifully incorporated into the revolutionary water study dance. I will now briefly summarize the impacts Graham and Humphrey had on the dance. These two choreographers were important pioneers because they were the first empowering women to lead a dance production. Through this, both females rebelled against the male-dominant culture of dance and paved the way for strong, fearless women to express themselves through dance. The early modern dance era also greatly impacted how society perceived the purpose of dance and changed how future dancers use the tools of movement. Prior to this revolutionary impact, dance had a stereotypical and ideal way of being perceived. But through this movement, people of all backgrounds were united in expressing their community, culture, and selves through the beauty found in this creative art. As we draw near the end, I would like to reiterate the two essential parts of this topic. First, early modern dance was a gateway for future dancers to be able to explore movement across culture, gender, and time. The people who have gone out of their way to contribute something extraordinary to the dance world have opened the floodgates of artistic expression. Second, early modern dance choreographers like Martha Graham and Doris Humphrey have paved the way for future dance through their courage and creativity. Without their innovative works, the world may have never experienced the revolutionary breakthrough in ideas that the early modern dance brought on. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been an enlightening time, and I'm so glad to have shared it with you. Once again, thank you.
Thank you, Lena, for your presentation. So again, we'll have 5 minutes Q&A. If you have questions or comments, here's your time.
Lena, I'm very, very proud of you. I feel so fortunate to have been able to have worked with you and mentored you, and it's so exciting to see how your presentation has evolved and developed. A beautiful job. And I just love how you took some of the suggestions and combined some of the video and the photos. And I mean, dance is so visual, right? And then also tied it into the fact and really emphasized how this was really a breakthrough for women, because until that point, it had always been the ethereal ballerina, and they of course never were allowed to choreograph, just to be the figures on stage. So really well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good work, Lena. I love how, selfishly, I love how these two tied together, Noonsol's and yours. I think it does show how in these visual art forms, how especially female bodies are portrayed, and seeing the work in modern dance, how it's broken down a lot of those gender norms and stereotypes and given more empowered women in new ways. I think you did a great job showing that visually. Yeah, good work.
Lena, can you hear me? Sorry.
Oh, yes, I can.
Okay, so my Zoom window kind of froze, but I can still speak. So thank you for your presentation. How did you come to explore this difference between classical and modern dance?
Classical and modern dance.
Yeah.
Well, I personally felt that, or I personally really enjoyed the look and like general feel of the classical ballet, because it was very ideal to me. But then once I looked a little deeper, I realized that a lot of it was very restrictive and very structured. So I wanted to find something that contrasted to this dance style. And then I came upon the modern dance, which was very expressive, and it was all about how individuals wanted to portray themselves. And I thought it was really interesting to contrast the two. So that's how I came to compare the two dances.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.